Welcome to Strange Encounters, the YouTube channel that explores all things unexplained and mysterious. In this episode, we once again delve into the real-life stories of people who claim to have been abducted by aliens and those that have witnessed sightings of UFOs. From encounters with extraterrestrial beings to strange lights in the sky, these stories are sure to send chills down your spine. Our goal is to provide a platform for people to share their first-hand experiences with the unexplained, the unknown, and the supernatural. We believe that everyone has a story to tell, and we're dedicated to bringing those stories to a wider audience. We invite you to like, subscribe, and leave a comment on this video. Don't forget to click the notification bell icon so that you get notified each time we post a new and exciting episode. Thank you for supporting Strange Encounters. Without your support, we wouldn't be able to continue exploring the unknown. So, sit back, relax, and join us as we dive into what people claim are their own true tales of the strange and unexplained. My UFO Experience by Banana Anna Graham. I wish I had a video to share about an experience 3 friends and I had back around the month of July in 2012. I wasn't able to get any video, but I want to know if anyone has any insight into what happened to me, or at the very least, if anyone might find this story intriguing. All this UFO news lately has brought back a memory that still gives me the creeps. We were parked on the side of a country road in northern Colorado. It was 3 a.m. and we were about 5 miles away from the foothills. We were swinging some LED poi lights around and just wasting time like bored 18-year-olds do. In the southern horizon, we saw what looked as though something launched into the sky. All we could see was a large orange flare. I don't know if it's related to what else I saw, but I thought it might be worth mentioning. About 30 minutes later, I looked west at the foothills and there was a white light and it seemed to be patrolling. I don't know how else to describe it. I told my friends to look at it and then it suddenly changed. It was now 3 red horizontal lights and they started to hover vertically and gain some elevation. We started freaking out. One of the friends was bouncing around, yelling for whatever it was to take him. I screamed, "This isn't funny," and said to get into the car. We got into the car and the object was right above us within seconds. I was driving, scared out of my mind, and didn't want to have anything to do with it. However, I did notice it had green and blue lights underneath the dark-colored or black craft, and it was silent. It felt as though time had stopped, and suddenly we were about a half-mile east, away from where we had started driving. Then it flew in front of us incredibly fast and just disappeared. We were so incredibly scared. We decided to drive as far east as possible to watch the sunrise. We drove about 30 miles and finally got to the sunrise. We started talking about the movie The Fourth Kind. I turned onto a road and I am not joking, but an owl flew in front of us. This caused us to start freaking out again, and then boom, the road comes to a dead end. There was a handwritten sign and all it said was pray, with some hands drawn in the praying position. We decided that this was enough and we drove home. It was all too freaky. All of us still have a hard time talking about it to people, and one of our friends refuses to talk about it even to us. I know a lot of you won't believe this, but it's one of my truths, so I don't care if you believe me or not. I have another story which comes from my dad. Back in 1956, his family lived on a farm in rural Knox County, Nebraska. It was during the summertime. His family would take baths in the river in the summer and dry off by a bonfire. So it was around dusk and they had taken their baths and were warming up by the fire. He said suddenly there was a blue orb and a red orb side by side, both the size of a pickup truck, and they flew down the river going south. The orbs then were on top of a hill in the west and shot up into the sky and disappeared. His family went up to the hill the following morning and saw 2 rings the size of the orbs in the grass. That's his story. Alien Contact by OKLaw7130. I've been having a lot of things happen to me recently that have made me think back on something very odd that happened when I was younger. I am currently a 23-year-old male and I live a relatively normal life. Rewind back to when I was 7 years old and a kid in my neighborhood had been abducted. Abducted by a person, that is. A 5-year-old boy was kidnapped through his open window on the second story. I lived in a pretty upscale neighborhood at the time, so things like that just didn't happen around that area. It caused a lot of panic among the parents around town. That panic obviously shifted to fear, and that fear was felt by us kids with the story on the news to back it up. It was enough to give any child nightmares. Fast forward a few months later, when the story had faded from the news outlets, and the panic slowly faded as well. I, however, would have nightmares sometimes about someone coming into my room and taking me. My parents would always check the locks on my windows and reassure me that I would be just fine, but the nightmares continued for some time. I recall one very specific dream that stood out from the rest, however. I was in my bedroom with my little brother's room next door and my parents' room down the hall. I was the last one awake because I went around the house crawling like a military man on a mission, trying not to get caught by my parents so that I could sneak into the living room and watch TV past my bedtime. Anyway, I ended up falling asleep on the couch. Not something I did because that obviously would blow my cover in the morning. I remember waking up at the very early stages of morning, maybe 2 to 3 a.m. I turned off the TV and walked to my room. I laid down in bed, pulled the covers over my head, and closed my eyes. Then I hear a tapping sound. I pull my covers down instantly. Something had just tapped on my window. I go into full panic mode, but I can't bring myself to move or scream. The tap happened again. Now I am hyperventilating, but something compelled me to pull my curtains back. I walked to the window, pulled the curtains back, and saw nothing. Before I go any further, I would like to make something clear. Growing up, I was very adventurous. This, however, was completely out of my comfort zone. Anyways, for some unknown reason, I took my screen off my window and opened my window so that I could crawl out. Next thing I know, I'm standing barefoot in my pajama bottoms in my sandy backyard. To this day, I can remember how weird it felt. What comes next is a blur. I remember walking down the road and seeing a house that was very distinctive because it had been struck by lightning 3 times in the last year and had nearly burnt to the ground each time. This house was several blocks away from my house, but still in the neighborhood. I remember a child's yellow slide coming from the second-story window down to the ground floor on the outside of the house. I proceeded to walk up to the house and make my way up the slide. As I started to get closer to the top of the slide, I could hear what sounded like a family having dinner. I got to the top and peeked inside. It was a family, but they were completely white, with no distinctive facial features. I can't recall what I saw them doing, but I remember thinking they were vampires. Whatever I saw them do scared me to the point of me falling down into the house. I landed on my back. The room spun for a moment, and the last thing I remember was 3 of them standing over me. The next thing I know, it's 7:30 a.m. The alarm clock rings. Thank God it was just a dream. I pull my covers down and wipe my eyes, slide my feet to the side of my bed, and my feet are filthy. After I take notice of this, I try to stand up. I immediately crash to the floor when a sharp lightning-like pain shot through my leg. I physically could not get up. I screamed for my parents, who initially thought I was making it up to get out of going to school. My dad had noticed my screen was missing from my window and gave me a stern look of disbelief when I told him I didn't know what happened to it. Once they realized I was in excruciating pain and I couldn't stop crying, they took me to the ER for x-rays. This is when I got really freaked out. The x-ray showed a hole punch in my femur. The doctor said he'd never seen anything like it and had absolutely no idea what could have caused it. Dumbfounded, we left the hospital with pain meds and a follow-up appointment that would end up amounting to me making a full recovery. To this day, I don't know if that was a dream or if I actually experienced something truly extraordinary that night. I was wondering if anyone else has ever experienced anything similar. My One and Only Encounter by Rougarou MC. As a child, I grew up in a small farming community in the Midwest, USA. The town I grew up in isn't even considered a town. It's considered a village with a population of less than 100 people. At 12 years old, my brother and I shared a room in my parents' house. Our bunk beds were up against a window that looked out over miles of farmland. One night, we were laying in bed playing our Game Boys when outside of the window there's this very bright light in the distance. It catches my eye and I start to stare. As I am observing whatever this is, I grab my brother's attention and it jumps much closer to our view. Now, I don't mean this thing was flying or gliding towards us. It literally jumped, probably 3 or 4 miles closer. It was so bright that you couldn't even make out the craft. We threw on our shoes and ran outside and stood in the yard watching. I remember yelling, "What are you?" By this time, both of our chocolate labs had made their way outside and were barking at this thing that was in the sky a few miles from us. I continued to stare. I asked again, "What are you?" Then the light was gone. I then see that it had jumped again and was directly above us. We are both standing looking directly up, and I feel this wave of calmness, this sense that whatever this thing is projecting to me that it is real and that it is peaceful. At this time, I felt so connected to the black abyss above me, it made the world seem that much smaller. My father comes running outside, wondering what is going on because the dogs are going nuts. My brother and I are looking to the sky, and as soon as my father exits the porch, again, the light is gone. I never saw it again. Ever since that experience, every night I spend 30 minutes to an hour looking up at the skies, hoping to see it again. I never have. My UAP USO Sightings by Slipstick Hog. These two sightings happened only about 2 weeks apart in December 2016 in the Barents Sea, about 100 nautical miles south-southeast of Spitsbergen. At the time, I was working as second in command on a fishing vessel, so my post was on the bridge. The boat had a crew of 12, 2 shifts that worked 24/7. The captain and I took shifts on the bridge. There were also 2 4-man deckhand crews and a chief and a cook. We were fishing cod in the rich fishing grounds there. This far north, it's very dark even at daytime that time of year. The first sighting happened in the evening, and I was on the bridge while 4 deckhands were on deck maintaining gear. It was dark as night when I spotted a circular illumination in the sea, maybe 100 meters to our starboard side. The crew spotted it too. It was similar to the light from our searchlights, except the searchlights were off. We used them to find buoys in the dark. The lights moved along with us and performed movements that were totally inconsistent with a submerged vehicle like a submarine. It performed very sharp turns and came very close to the boat. There was very little I could do to stay clear of it as its movements were totally unpredictable. It zigzagged and moved back and forth. It lasted about a minute, then just disappeared. The lights were circular and about 5 meters across. I remember I could not see any artificial disturbance of the waters around it, and there were no other ships or light sources in the area. The response from the crew was, "Did you see that?" There was some talk, and we laughed about it for a few days between us. About 2 weeks later, we were still in the same area. This was in the middle of the night. The crew was below deck processing catch. We were steaming about 10 knots in calm waters in total darkness, and I spotted the same illumination again straight ahead, maybe 100 meters. I made a starboard turn to avoid it, so it was no more than a maximum of 30 meters on port side. It followed along with us for a minute maybe. Then I see 3 bright orbs that were reddish yellow in color, rise out of the lights in a line formation from my perspective. I did not see any visible craft or structure. The lights hovered for a few seconds just above the sea, then just shot straight up at incredible speed. How fast, I have no idea, but they were just gone. Then the lights in the sea disappeared. It was an incredible sight, and it has made me think a lot about what is reality in this world. I have tried to figure out what it could have been, but I am completely clueless. It Wasn't My Dad by Cool Business 8372. When I was about 9 years old, I remember waking up to the sensation of being lowered onto my bed. For a second, I thought it was my dad carrying me and laying me down in bed after I had fallen asleep in the living room or something. But something was strange. I didn't feel arms. I didn't feel the blankets get pulled back and then placed over me. My eyes were still closed, but I remember as I woke up how odd that felt, so I rolled over and opened my eyes. I saw a silhouette. At first, I thought it might be my dad kneeling beside my bed after laying me down. But my dad isn't completely bald, and the more I looked at the silhouette, I realized how large the head was on this thin neck and small frame shoulders and chest. Then it started to move. It brought its hands up, almost as if someone would do on a TV show or cartoon, like they were sneaking subtly. I could then see its arms and fingers, the fingers especially, long, thin fingers, and when I saw it moving, I knew it wasn't my dad, because my dad is over 6 feet tall. This thing was walking, hunched over toward my bedroom door, and it was 3.5 to 4 feet tall. After seeing the fingers, I looked back at the head, and by this time, it had almost gotten to the threshold of the door, and there was a dim light on in the hall. It had kind of straightened out its posture, and all of a sudden it stopped like it realized I was watching, spun its head around at me, and looked me dead in the eyes. The dim light bounced off its big black eyes, and I could finally make out its face. It was a gray, and for a split moment, I couldn't tell if it was angry I woke up, or if it was as shocked and scared as I was. I threw the covers over my head, and I screamed for my parents. They didn't see anything, and I begged them to tell me it was them. They swore it wasn't them, and that I was just having a bad dream. I've had 4 or 5 UFO sightings, and other memories pop back up from even younger parts of my childhood, but yeah, that's just one of my experiences that I thought I'd share. I Was Abducted 3 Times by Anonymous Redditor. Hi everyone, it's my first time posting here on this subreddit. I saw an image in the Aliens Reddit of certain symbols that people often see during their sightings or abductions. Then I left a comment saying that I had seen very similar symbols during an abduction experience. I drew them afterwards from memory. Another Reddit user replied to my comment and encouraged me to post my experience in the Experiencers sub. So here I am. This is my first time talking about my experience in public, because every time I say to someone that I was abducted, they laugh at me saying I'm crazy. First, I want to say I was abducted 3 times. I can't remember exactly when, but my first abduction happened between March to April of this year. It sounds odd, but it seems my memories of those months was partially erased, except for the abduction itself, which was relatively fast, and I remember exactly what happened. The only thing I remember before the abduction is that I went to sleep feeling very restless that day. I think I was sleeping while this happened. The first thing that I felt was my body floating and shaking. While I was seeing my own body, my bedroom, and listening to everything around me, suddenly I was moved to a very bright place where nothing could be seen. I heard weird voices speaking in an exotic language, and then the symbols appeared to me for the first time. At this time, they were not as clear as they would become later. Immediately after seeing the symbols, I suddenly woke up thinking that it was a nightmare, and I went back to sleep. The second and the third abduction happened sometime in April. As I said before, it seems my memory was erased prior to the abduction, but following the same pattern, probably while I was sleeping. And the only thing I can remember is the abduction itself. The second abduction, I got teleported the same way as the first, but this time to a place like a church in the Vatican. A being approached to me presenting itself as Saint Irina. Its appearance was like a robotic statue of a woman, and it spoke to me using a kind of telepathy. It showed me a few saint-like statues, saying that those were draconian automatons, but disguised as saint statues. Saint Irina said to me that those automatons are a kind of primitive computer built by the reptilians to decrypt some information written in control tablets made by them, working like a kind of letter to their species. The third and last abduction, following the same pattern as before, I got teleported again, but this time to a citadel in a desert-like place. I can remember I saw a few houses that were like metallic igloos. They had paved streets with a kind of red asphalt. It was night because I saw a dark sky with many stars, and most of them had a very bright blue color. And then I finally saw some people, and they were very beautiful. Their appearance was like the elves from the Lord of the Rings movie. Blonde hair, very white skin, blue eyes, and they were all wearing a blue suit, except for one that was wearing a blue military suit with a few jewels on it. After I saw the military one, I got teleported straight to a place underneath a very, very big flying saucer type of craft. It had a very intense metallic purple color. While there were some lights around its shape, I saw some symbols on the ship's body. I think they were the same as those I saw in the first abduction, and those were the ones I drew. Underneath the flying saucer, some of these weird people, including the military one, hugged me. Then I don't remember what happened after that, but that was my last abduction experience. Welcome to a special feature of strange encounters we like to call Famous Encounters. In this segment, we explore some of the most famous and intriguing encounters between humans and the unexplained entities that continue to capture our imagination. In this episode, we'll be examining the Flatwoods Monster Incident of 1952. From the rural backroads of West Virginia to the heights of national media attention, this bizarre encounter with an otherworldly creature has become one of the most talked about cryptid sightings of all time. Join us as we delve deep into the history, eyewitness accounts, and possible explanations for this strange and enigmatic encounter. So, sit back, relax, and get ready to enter a world of mystery and intrigue as we explore one of the most famous and compelling stories in the annals of paranormal research. The Flatwoods Monster sighting, also known as the Braxton County Monster, occurred on September 12, 1952 in Flatwoods, West Virginia, a small town with a population of only around 300 people. The incident involved a group of people who witnessed a strange creature in the woods, as well as an encounter with an unidentified flying object. According to an article in the Charleston Gazette from September 14, 1952, the incident started when a group of young boys saw a bright object streak across the sky and crash into a hillside near the town of Flatwoods. Excited by the sight, the boys decided to go investigate, and they were soon joined by a couple of adults. The group made their way to the top of the hill, where they encountered a large, pulsing ball of light hovering about 50 feet off the ground. As the group approached the object, they suddenly caught sight of a large, humanoid figure standing close to a nearby oak tree. The figure was described as being about 10 feet tall and having a glowing red face that seemed to emit a mist or haze. Its body was described as being covered in a dark, metallic-looking suit of armor. The creature's head was shaped like a spade, with two small eyes set deep into its skull. As soon as the group caught sight of the creature, they panicked and ran back down the hill. One of the boys, Eugene Lemon, said that he had been closest to the creature and had shone his flashlight on it, causing the monster to emit a hissing noise and glide towards them in a floating motion. The group reported experiencing a nauseating mist or gas as the creature approached, which caused them to cough and choke. When interviewed only about 30 minutes after the sighting by a reporter from the Braxton Democrat, most of the witnesses were barely able to speak. Some of them sought first aid. The reporter thought there was no doubt that they had been badly frightened by something. The group reported the incident to local authorities, who conducted a search of the area but found no evidence of the creature or the UFO. According to a September 16, 1952 article in the Parkersburg News, several local residents reported experiencing symptoms such as vomiting, throat irritation, and difficulty breathing after the sighting. The incident took place at a time during a flurry of other sightings of UFOs in the area. This was also a time in history when there was a noticeable rise in the awareness of UFOs in popular culture and the media. The Flatwoods Monster sighting gained national attention in the weeks and months that followed, with newspapers and radio stations reporting on the incident. The Air Force also took an interest in the case, dispatching investigators from the nearby Wright-Patterson Air Force Base to interview witnesses and search for evidence. The Air Force investigators eventually concluded that the sighting had likely been caused by a meteor and that the creature described by the witnesses was probably a barn owl, which they believed had been illuminated by the flashlight beam and appeared larger and more menacing as a result. However, this explanation was met with skepticism by many, including some of the witnesses themselves. In 1973, a woman from Joliet, Quebec, reported seeing a similar creature looking through the windows of her home. Her husband, who went outside to investigate, found only a very frightened dog. The police believed that the woman was sincere in her account. Over the years, the Flatwood Monster sighting has become a well-known case in the annals of UFO and paranormal research. The incident has inspired numerous books, documentaries, and even characters in video games. Officials in Flatwood have erected a welcome sign, which designated the town as Home of the Green Monster. The town has a museum dedicated to the monster and commemorates the legend in its annual Flatwood Days festival. While the true nature of the creature remains a mystery, the Flatwoods Monster continues to capture the imaginations of those fascinated by the unexplained. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Strange Encounters. We hope these stories have given you some insight into the unexplained and mysterious world of alien abductions and UFO sightings. If you enjoyed this video, please share, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment below. Your feedback helps us create better content and lets us know what you want to see more of. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you never miss an episode. We are always on the lookout for new stories to share. So, if you have a strange encounter you'd like to share, please feel free to send it to our email address, verystrangeencounters@gmail.com. We love to hear from our viewers, and we appreciate your contributions to this channel. Thank you again for watching, and we look forward to bringing you more strange and unexplained stories in the future.